Mr. Mark Selby, how are you, sir?
Very good, Mr. Matthew Gordon. How are you?
I'm glad to hear it. You're looking very Gen Z. You look like you're just about to apply for a job at Apple. Where are
Yes.
you?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm on sort of a semi-holiday down in the Bahamas right now. So
Oh, very good. Very
quite
good.
good.
Okay, well, like we better not eat into your holiday time. I'll get told off by your wife, so no one wants that. Okay, we're gonna talk about some company news today. Lots of company news happening. I think it's been quite a good reaction to your kind of forecast for look back on nickel last year and forecast for nickel this year. Things starting to feel quite nice out there, aren't they?
Oh, for sure. I mean, again, there was like at the beginning of last year, there's lots of bearish overhang on the market, and yet, prices today, shortly time ago, they're above $29,000 a ton, and they've been trading in a $26,000 to $29,000 ton range, $12 to $13 a pound for the non-metric ones, and again, just before Chinese New Year, if people, with people, things starting to wind down, if you want to play games in the market, going in between the Christmas and New Year break, and then as well now with China dominating global trading, in and around Chinese New Year would be a good time to give the market a shove. And we didn't see that shove. I would say things sort of ended quietly going into China with some on the stainless steel side, some sort of positive, I would say slightly more positive tones than there otherwise would be. So again, my view is that we'll still see a fairly sloppy first half with prices retracing a little bit lower from here. But again, the continued strong growth in the EV market that everyone is underestimating, just like they underestimated China 20 years ago, will drive a stronger second half, and we'll see where prices end up by the end of the year. But again, I think a great start to the year, and we're seeing strength across the rest of the complex. And again, I think starting to see other investors wake up to the fact. Again, I've had a couple conversations while I'm down here. With tech investors, who realize that the raw material end of the supply chain is really where the real pinch is coming, and where the real value is to be made. Going forward, you could own Tesla for the last 10 years, and that was a great trade. But maybe the next great trade for 10 years is clean green metals that are made not in China going forward. So. It was interesting to see these conversations emerge, and again, I think there'll be more of those as the year goes on.
Well, look, I think that's a fascinating conversation. It might be worth spending a couple of minutes on this one, because we spotted that last year, and we started trying to find and attract some of these disenfranchised tech investors that perhaps got a little bit battered and bruised, from September 2021 onwards, and trying to introduce them to the concept of mining, because I feel there's a kind of new reality out there, in the sense that supply chain off the back of COVID, supply chain issues, and then obviously the Russia situation is all of a sudden top of the agenda, top of any conversation, top of any news articles or news programs. They're talking about the kind of, whether it be critical minerals lists or the lack of access to commodities in the marketplace. Regular people who hadn't really paid much attention to it, suddenly aware of the EV revolution. In the same context, they're also aware of the length of time it's taking for cars to turn up once they've purchased them. So there's a real sort of tense environment out there around commodities with a very big audience. And I'll say this, and I've repeated it a lot, which is if you put together all of the mining companies in the world, from your BHPs, Rios down to your smallest explorer, and put them in one entity, they would be 50% of the size of one technology company in the shape of Apple, right? So that's how small this universe that we live in is. But nevertheless, I think it's becoming more and more important. So I think there's I kind of feel with the tech audience, they get it in a way that perhaps the mining guys don't, ironically.
No, and that's the part, again, going back to 20 plus years ago with China, is, when you saw the generalists enter the market, because they're playing with checks that are, magnitudes larger than the mining industry as a whole, with even a small fraction of that money getting allocated to basic materials, it just feels like a tidal wave of capital coming at the sector. And that, it was really back. That was the last time we saw a major shift. I think they were there briefly in the early 2010s, but that's been it. They've been, basically out of and underweight raw materials, for a very long time. And so, again, for when this rotation comes, it feels good. And again, we'll see whether it comes through later this year. That's kind of when I think we'll really start to see the signs of it. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and they may come in forward, but so are people who'd never even thought about it before, like small funds who were allocating capital into the technology space, and they're going, well, I can't do that. It's pointless. Where do I go? You're being asked, I'm being asked questions about things. What's this nickel thing? What's this copper thing? What is cobalt? What is graphite? What does the market look like? They don't understand the language or have the vocabulary yet, but they'll pick it up real quick. These are smart boys and girls looking to place themselves today for what will happen in the future. That's how they make money, that kind of leverage. So anyway, it's a point worth exploring. If you're listening to this, go off and kind of do your own kind of research on that one. But I assure you, it's a common. But let's talk company first of all. You learn. There must be a few learnings out there as well. Because you've always said we need all of the above. There's lots of companies having a go at it. Any companies similar to doing what you were doing?
Yeah, so it was good. We've got one of, I would call Team ultramafic, FPX, with Martin Crean, who's doing a good job advancing project out in BC. They just finished their last phase of process testing. And fortunately, the recovery dropped from 85 to 82%, but they've identified, some other opportunities. Again, the nice thing when you don't recover 100%, which ultramafic deposits, it's always, there's some nickel that's a little tougher to get to. It just creates opportunities, to look at other technologies, and it sounds like they've identified some new things that can help boost recovery further. They also announced this week that they are going to kick off their pre-feasibility study process, and they're on track, to have that done in September 2023. So again, good to see some of these big ultramafic projects continuing to advance. And again, they've done a good job to date moving that project forward.
Fantastic. And SPC Nickel that have been in the news as well. What are they up to?
Yeah, so these are the next couple of ones are some companies that we've been talked about for a while. Both at two ends of the development spectrum. So SPC Nickel was an early stage explorer. Again, I think there's a smart group of guys there running that project. Unfortunately, one of their key assets in Sudbury is as happens in Sudbury, it was split between Inco and Falconbridge back in the day. And so you literally have deposits that have been defined, but one company or the other company owns just a fraction of it. And so, mining is generally hard when you own the entire deposit. Owning half of it just makes it that much more challenging. But it was good for them. They got a deal done with Vale to effectively combine these two deposits. They're basically purchasing a piece of land down to a certain vertical meter. That's the thing in Sudbury, is not only do you have horizontal boundaries, but you have vertical boundaries as well around property. So it's when you've got good resources, they've found lots of ways to cut it up into different slices. So the nice thing is this deposit, put together, should be able to support a decent small scale open pit mining operation. You've got 2 mills in the area to be able to truck to. Obviously, Vale gets first crack at all the offtake, and they'll effectively own 37. They get 37% of the profits from the joint venture after SPC gets their money back. So again, when they hold all the cards, it's tough to get a deal out of them. But the fact they got a deal, and on one that is still looks that there's some upside for them there was good to see. And it's in the same neighborhood where Magna Mining picked up the Denison project from. So it's nice to see that part of the Sudbury Basin get some activity, and who knows, maybe they can do something together with Magna Mining on that front.
Okay, should we stick with North America? Can we stick with North America? Because I want to talk about Talon, because I want to end up in Brazil.
Okay.
So Talon, bit of news from them.
Yeah, so some drill results on what they're now calling the Raptor Zone. It was originally their 264-221. Again, I'm a big believer we need to see, we want all the projects to go forward. Just sometimes, when there's a little too much window dressing on something, it should be a caution to investors. So, there was about a page and a half of geospeak, there was a company called Garibaldi Resources, where you had massive pages of geospeak, and some drill results that weren't so outstanding. So they got some narrow, higher grade intervals, which are good. I mean, again, they may point to something bigger, but again, just to investors, if you end up, traversing a whole pile of geospeak before you get to the results, generally, they weren't great results. But again, hopefully they'll find some more there. But don't resort to the geospeak too much, and to try and sort of maybe a little too much icing on a cake and not enough cake. So
we see a lot of that. Like, I don't think they're the first or last company that will be guilty of that. There'll be moments during the development of a company where perhaps it was not going quite according to plan, and they just need a breather. And geospeak's a good filler for now. But I think they've done a great job up until now, and let's see
for
if
sure
the future holds for those guys. Likewise, I think analysts knows we cover a lot of companies who they say they try and put a lot of fluff and icing, or however you want to describe it, just to basically point people in the opposite direction to where they should be looking, which is perhaps having a little deeper dig and thinking about what the economics could look like. But we'll come back to Talon. I'm sure they've been good value. We need all of the above, and we wish them well. Now, obviously, they picked that up. They picked that up from Rio. Was that Rio?
Yeah. They've got they're earning into 60% of the project, with Rio Tinto owning the balance of it. So
right, okay. So similar in the sense of the SPC Nickel thing. You've got to negotiate hard and smart at the beginning of these things, or you're never quite sure where you'll end up and what you'll end up with. And talking of big boys, BHP Explore, they're also trying to help out a little bit. Well, supposedly.
Yeah. So this is their new venture capital initiative. So it's good to see them providing early stage capital. So and again, these are largely early stage companies. So there were 7 of them: Tutum Metals, Impact Minerals, Asian Battery Metals, Red Ox Copper, Bronzite Corp, Nordic Nickel, and Kings Rose Mining. And so again, targeted in, and this should be a good sign of where BHP is comfortable geographically. So they're targeting Scandinavia, North America, Asia, and Botswana. So it's so interesting to see where that geographic focus is for them. Obviously, it'll a lot of these are earlier stage companies. So the fact that BHP's run the rule over them and says there's some potential there. These would be good ones to put on your watch list. To see how they unfold. So again, good to see the big boys starting to fund early stage stuff once again.
And there'll be conditions attached to that, presumably, or are they doing this out of the goodness of their hearts and trying to help the industry?
You know what? I think it's just straight equity financing. It's sort of angel type, sort of early stage, early stage PE type investing. But again, I mean, some of these companies are private, some are public. So I think it's no strings early stage money with access to BHP's technical team. So
okay, it'd be interesting.
We'll see. I'll look into some of the announcements from the groups to see if there are some strings. But
okay, yeah, that'd be interesting. So it's also interesting when you've seen a Cisco royalties in the past kind of bodge things up a little bit, by trying to become a private equity company all of a sudden, and you kind of sometimes need to stick to your knitting. But I guess without a major exploration department of their own, this is a good way of sort of seeing what's going on, maybe. You do indeed. Hey, well, should we talk about Brazil? Horizonte, and it's a company that we've talked about in the past. I think I've made some comments about the ability on certainly one of their projects. How are they doing down there?
No, they've done an excellent job actually. They are now their Araguaia project, which is their ferronickel project. They put out an update at the end of the year saying they're on track for first quarter 2024 production. And again, they're going to be one of the few new nickel producers, outside of Indonesia. And again, timing wise, they'll be hitting the market in early 2024, by which time I think the kind of discounts that you're seeing on a bunch of intermediate products will start to close up. And so, I think it'll be a good time, for a new ferronickel project going to market. And, again, people, as nickel comes forward, there's very few standalone assets that are left out there, and the majors, have already gone on a pretty aggressive shopping spree. So, I think once they ramp up successfully, there'll be a giant target on their back, sooner than later. So, we'll see how that plays out. But again, good to see them making progress. And what they announced this week is they filed the environmental impact work for their Vermeo project, which was a HPAL project that Vale had worked on for quite some time back in the 2000s. And so, we'll see how that goes. I think permitting last time was an issue, but obviously, if they're doing the work again, they must feel that there's a path forward on that. So again, hopefully there is, because again, Brazil is one of the few places where you find nickel in quantity that's not in Indonesia, and would be good to see some new nickel supply coming in from that part of the world for sure.
Right. So they talk about on budget and on target. And I think there were questions around that back in 2019. 2020 about how they can deliver an HPAL project with some of the numbers that they have talked about. Have things changed in terms of the technologies, in terms of that they've got access to, the partners that they've got access to?
Well, the interesting thing will be to see, again, because the Chinese now have built a bunch of HPAL plants, in Indonesia, and whether some of those economies of scale and standardization of process, might be available and helpful to them as well. So, that'll be the piece to see there. Again, we still haven't seen much HPAL success out of other than the Chinese in Indonesia and Sumitomo Metal Mining. So, we'll see how that goes. But again, good to see some more nickel supply outside of China moving forward.
Brilliant, Mike. Okay, that's a nice to have a company rundown. Like, you're on holiday. I'm not going to take advantage of that. Get out there on the beach or whatever you do for fun in that part of the world. And we'll see you next week.
Sounds good, sir. Take care.